And joining us this morning is one of those challengers, Paul Spencer, a Democrat running in the 2nd District. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you. And so let's start with this. We're seeing a lot of teachers like yourself running, really in all of these different congressional districts and across the country. So why do you think a lot of educators are stepping into the race now?
I don't know if it's just exclusively educators so much. I think just a lot of people who aren't considered, career politicians, people from a lot of different walks of life, so whether they be doctors or teachers. We had a farmer here in Arkansas for a while. So I think it's just regular people that have regular and real concerns about the direction things are going.
So as an educator yourself, what do you think the Republican-controlled Congress would learn from you if you're elected?
Well, I've always advocated for stronger ethics here in Arkansas, and in fact, beginning around 2011, we launched some ballot measures to tighten up some of the ethics laws in Arkansas, and we were able to get some of that passed through the referred amendment a few years ago. So I'm hoping that a tighter ethical control of our elections, looking at money in politics, how that goes, where it comes from, and who gets to spend it on whom, and just finance issues are the big things for me. And I hope that by not taking PAC money and campaign contributions from non-human entities, that serves as an example.
And so, yeah, you're no stranger to kind of influencing policy out there. I know that finance will, take up a lot of your time, but what else is kind of going to be your passion projects and things that you look for as a lawmaker if elected?
Well, the first thing this kind of hits back to the campaign finance, but the first thing that I want to do is to sign on to an amendment they have a bunch of proposed amendments that are circulating throughout the House that would limit the effects of a 2010 Supreme Court decision, the Citizens United decision, that essentially allowed independent expenditure committees unfettered spending. Additionally, I think a Medicare for All type program with insurance is probably my second big goal when I get to Washington. And of course, I don't know what we're going to be looking at with regards to tax policy by then, but we'll just have to play it by ear once that. But those are two of my bigger things that I'm looking at.
So how would you grade the healthcare push, what Congress has been doing so far? They haven't really been able to do much.
Right, so I have to give them an F for effort because they've not been able to do anything. And I think that's why a lot of people that elected these folks are fed up about. We see a lot of polls now that the incumbents aren't really making a lot of hay with their constituents at this point in time, and there's a tendency to a lot of people who did vote them in are looking at other options at this point. So that works good for the challengers. But the health care proposals themselves, I think were horrific. They, I don't know why they could call them a health care proposal. They actually did more harm than they would good. And that doesn't seem to be a good idea when it comes to health care.
And then as soon as you announced your campaign, you've said from the beginning, you're, quote, disgusted by the growing power of corporate money in politics and then the lack of representation for the needs of Arkansans. We've already touched on this a little bit, but how does the GOP tax plan come into play there? A lot of people are arguing that all it does is put more money into the people's pockets who are already very padded to begin with. Right.
I don't think it's a very good effort at this point in time. It'll probably pass, but I certainly hope not. What bothers me most about this, aside from the inequitable distribution of monies, is the fact that it's been done in a way that's not the normative process for passing legislation. Everything's been done on a continuing resolution so that you can get around full votes and so forth and just do it with the Republican majorities. So that looks like there's something is trying to be hidden from the voters and hidden from sight. So that in and of itself should be an indicator of the people that this is to serve. And it's the special interests and lobbyists that have pushed these folks in Congress to proffer these things forth. So again, the whole representation issue, I don't feel that I'm being adequately represented, and there are a lot of folks here in Arkansas and across the country. That's again why we're having so many people stepping up and running who never even considered running before. So I think a lot of folks are just tired of seeing the people that they elected to represent them representing other entities like Americans for Prosperity or Goldman Sachs or whomever it is.
Even if you do have a lot of good ideas and you are elected, are you worried that even though you're the voice of the people, that your voice wouldn't be heard since it is a Republican-controlled Congress still? I mean, we could see some flip-flop, who knows, but it seems like right now that that's, you know, the GOP will have the stronghold here in 2018.
And that will, in all likelihood, be true. However, you have to get in there and you have to throw ideas out and you have to work for the end that you feel like you're called to work for. So I think sitting back, you're just going to end up with more of the same. This is going to light a fire in a lot of folks. And even though you have a Republican majority, I think if you get a mandate from the people saying, we don't like the way things are moving right now, that could actually push them into doing some more constituent-centric work and look at the needs of the actual people of the districts.
And let's talk about the incumbent here in this congressional district, so French Hill. I think something interesting that happened this past earlier this year that we've never really seen before is that, you know, he has a speaking engagement at a school just to speak with students and parents out of their frustration with the current administration, said that he shouldn't be there. The school canceled on him, eventually ended up re-inviting him, but I mean, that's a big deal for a school to cancel on its, you know, congressional delegate. And so do you think we would have seen the same thing happen if he were a Democrat?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you were leading up to this. It's frustration. You have the town halls that were few and far between. People didn't have the outlet to let their frustration be heard with what's going on in Washington. I think the inaccessibility of a lot of these candidates, whether it be Senator Cotton or Representative Hill, played heavily on that decision. And I think it was kind of ironic that they would say, we don't want to see him there. But, you know, when we were trying to get him in public for the longest time. But, I think a lot of it had to do with the just overarching frustration of these children's parents and so forth. I'm glad he ultimately got a chance to speak to the school. And I think the kids deserve to see their representative, regardless of who it is or what he's offering up. The kids are going to learn government by seeing this, and Representative Hill is our closest link to the federal government. So, I applaud him for going back and doing that, and I applaud the school for having him come back.
And your schedule's about to start ramping up even more now, too, as 2018 draws nearer. You know, we have the holiday season upon us already, and so would you want to tell our viewers kind of what you have planned coming up?
We just began, we run our finances by quarter. So we have to file with the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission, every quarter. So we began fundraising in earnest after our last reporting period. So we have a lot of meetings. I have to travel to New York City here in a week or so for a fundraiser there. So we're going to make a big push for this next quarter. And for example, we've already had 600 individual donations. We've made, in 3 weeks of this quarter, we've surpassed what the previous Democratic candidate made in the entire election cycle. So a lot of people are watching us, and a lot of people are investing in this candidacy. So we intend to go out and see as many folks as we can and make sure that our message is out there for everybody to listen to.
Maybe some early warning signs that 2018 could be very different than what we've seen in the past.
If the fundraising, I was floored at the response that we had just in the last 3 or so weeks. It's surpassed anything that we could have ever imagined. So if that's an indication, I'm excited, and I think we are going to have a very exciting 2018.
All right, well, Paul, thanks for coming on the show with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. I sure appreciate it.